That's right. You know here, we totally turn up down at Total Tools. Big things are going. Yes, my love. 10 a.m., May 15 at Total Tools, Lot C6 Drax Hall. Whole heap of new things, whole heap of excitement. And guess what? Cliffviews Online I got it there live on location from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. I got prizes, surprises, and giveaways. I got there. But I'm not that alone, you know. Them are going to have up to 25% off at all 3 locations. You can't miss this. Remember, 10 a.m., May 15, Total Tools, Lot C6, Drax Hall. Catch it live on YouTube during Cliffviews Online from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's a go massive.
It's hard-hitting. It's riveting. It's the much-talked-about cover story during Nationwide at 5. Here Cliff Hughes get to the heart of the story of the day. Cover story aired 5:30 weekdays during Nationwide at 5. Nationwide at 5. Talk radio at its best. Cover story.
Cover Story is brought to you by JTA Credit Union, serving our members, impacting lives positively.
Multilink, roll with control. Use Multilink, safe, fast, and accepted in more locations.
Do you have a consumer-related issue? Want to learn more about matters concerning you as a consumer? Well, keep it locked to Nationwide 90 FM for the Consumer Hour with me, Nora Gay Banton. Weekdays from 9 to 10 a.m. For all your consumer-centric matters, stay tuned to the Consumer Hour on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media.
Ready to tackle that building project? Start right. Start here at H&L Rapid True Value for building supplies. The time by H&L Rapid True Value is
Nationwide time, 5 o'clock.
Interex Distributors presents the ultimate tile clearance sale. Transform your space for less. Dunrobin Plaza, 30 Dunrobin Avenue. The temperature by Interex Distributors is
31 degrees Celsius in Kingston, 30 out west in Montego Bay.
From the Nationwide News Network, comprehensive, incisive, tough. This is Nationwide at 5.
Good afternoon, I'm Roby-Ann Williams.
And I'm Mahiri Stewart.
In Nationwide News at this hour, Works Minister Robert Morgan says Spark is delivering and will continue the work.
We came up with Spark 2 because we made a commitment to communities that we will fix all the 10 roads that they recommended.
Spark workers allegedly being paid below minimum wage on the instruction of the China Harbor Engineering Company, CHEC.
Dr. Angela Brown-Burke admits that her conduct in the House on Tuesday was not in keeping with parliamentary standards following May's spectacle.
I start by accepting that my actions on Tuesday did not accord with acceptable parliamentary procedure.
But MP Damian Crawford says she is owed an apology.
Constitutional Court strikes down Bengal mining permit as unconstitutional and null and void.
In news from the rest of the world, first direct U.S.-Venezuela commercial flight in 7 years lands in Caracas.
U.S. House votes to end government shutdown over immigration operations.
In sports, Akeem Blake to lead off Jamaica's team in the first event at World Relays in Botswana this weekend.
And later in our broadcast, in our cover story at 5:35, an altercation allegedly over a cup of ice have left 2 people dead, with 1 woman being stabbed to death and the perpetrator fatally shot by the police. How can we push for better conflict resolution practices? We'll hear from psychiatrist at Bellevue Hospital, Dr. Brian Kazara, and member of WMW Jamaica, Ruth Howard.
In the nation's business at 6:25, opposition spokesperson on education, Damian Crawford, has renewed his call for the age of consent to be raised to 18, but at least one youth group disagrees. We'll hear from the director at Hear the Children's Cry, Nigel Cooper, and Executive Director of Eve for Life, Joy Crawford.
Taking you around the world at 6:45, polls are at this hour closing in Antigua and Barbuda's general election. You'll get an update. And at 7, it's the comments section with Shalois Michael and Mahiri Stewart. This evening, they're asking, should the age of consent be raised to 18? Give us your comments by logging on to our Facebook page, Nationwide News Network, and by tweeting us at Nationwide Radio, and message us on WhatsApp at 876-285-5693. You can also leave your comments on Instagram at Nationwide 90FM. All these and more as we take you home on air, Nationwide 90 FM, this Thursday afternoon, Thursday, April 30, 2026.
If it's news, it's got to be Nationwide 90 FM.
Now to the details. All 10 roads recommended per constituency under the Shared Prosperity through Accelerated Improvement to our Road Network (SPARK) program will be repaired, so says Work Minister Robert Morgan.
This is a commitment by the Prime Minister. It's a commitment by the Cabinet. It is also a commitment by the government. So I want to assure the public your roads will be repaired. Your 10 roads that you recommended in the consultations will be repaired. And that's a commitment we stand by.
Minister Morgan was responding to comments that hundreds of roads assessed under SPARK might not be rehabilitated due to costing and scoping concerns. The comments were made by CEO of the National Works Agency, NWA, E.G. Hunter, during Wednesday's sitting of Parliament's Public Administration and Appropriations Committee. On Thursday, Minister Morgan sought to explain that the extent of damage to some roads requires supporting infrastructure before repair works can begin. According to him, this is why a SPARK 2.0 is already in the pipeline to continue the task ahead.
The SPARK program was not meant to fix all the roads that were in the consultation because each constituency would have gotten a specified budget. And we know that as you're building a road, various things may occur. You may have to do retaining walls like we did at Everest Drive in East Kingston and Port Royal. You may have to do more pipelines. So over time, we've realized that some of the roads that were in the 10 will not be done, which is why in the JLP manifesto, we came up with SPARK 2 because we made a commitment to communities that we will fix all the 10 roads that they recommended.
Robert Morgan, Works Minister. Still on the SPARK, Member of Parliament for North Clarendon, Wavell Hines, has alleged that workers under the program are being paid below minimum wage on the instruction of the China Harbour Engineering Company, CHEC. He made the claim during Wednesday's sitting of Parliament's Public Administration and Appropriations Committee, PAAC. Mahiri Stewart tells us more.
Representatives from the Ministry of Economic Growth and the National Works Agency, NWA, went before the PAAC on Wednesday, where the SPARK program was discussed. The $40 billion program was contracted out to China Harbour Engineering Company, CHEC, with the NWA as primary implementing agency. CEO of the NWA, E.G. Hunter, was fielding questions when Member of Parliament for North Clarendon, Wavell Hines, asked him about the payment rates under SPARK.
Did you standardize the payments for the work done, whether it be a liaison, a tradesman, or a labourer on the road work? Because I ask the question because the fees offered to the workers
You're talking
is sometimes below minimum wage, and when I press the contractor or the persons on the work, they say that's the rate they get from above, and they can't change it, and that's what they've been using.
Hunter responded to the claim, suggesting it would be a concern for CHEC and, to a greater extent, government policy to address, not the NWA.
In the industry, there's the GIC rate, Joint Industrial Council rates, which obtains in the construction industry. Whether or not CHEC, as the main contractor, subscribes to those rates, that's their business. The client doesn't interfere with that. Now, from a policy point of view, the government of Jamaica may want to make some pronouncement, but certainly within the ambit of a contract, we stick with the prescription of the contract.
Hines sought to press Hunter further, but committee chairman Peter Bunting interjected.
I am not getting from you that it is CHEC's business whether they pay at minimum rates or not. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're saying? It is left up to CHEC to pay at the rates at which they want to pay?
But Mr. Hunter said it's a standard FIDIC contract.
Yeah.
In hearing the exchange, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth, Arlene Williams, called on Hines to report the specific allegations to the ministry. And Central St. James MP Heroy Clark made a similar appeal.
So, Chair and members, I just want to say, Member of Parliament, where there are specific instances, we would want that. Well, as the owner of the contract on behalf of the government, I certainly would want to be aware of those specific cases so that we can take that up with the contractor.
I just want the member to, because I hear mention of person being paid below minimum wage, provide us with the evidence, because the government of Jamaica has a policy in place that you can't pay below the minimum wage. And if so, provide the evidence so that a criminal action can be taken against the person who is paying.
Mahiri Stewart for Nationwide News.
Member of Parliament for Southwest St. Andrew, Dr. Angela Brownberg, has admitted that her conduct in the House of Representatives on Tuesday was not in keeping with parliamentary standards. She spoke with a journalist at the University of the West Indies Mona campus on Thursday.
I start by accepting that my actions on Tuesday did not accord with acceptable parliamentary procedure. I also acknowledge under the circumstances that the decision of the House is in keeping with the standing orders. Having said that, however, it arose in the context of a heated discussion that we were having around a critical piece of legislation and our attempts to be heard under the circumstances. And I think context matters while we uphold the rules of the House.
On Tuesday, the lower house held a marathon sitting as legislators examined the clauses of the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority NARA bill. But the sitting was disrupted as Dr. Brownberg removed the parliamentary mace from its stand in protest for not being acknowledged by House Speaker Juliet Holness. Thereafter, the Speaker called for the MP's suspension from the sitting. Dr. Brownberg says she does not want the incident to distract from what she describes as the lack of transparency in the implementation of NARA.
At the same time, I would not want that to distract unduly from the important points that we were making about the lack of transparency and accountability, the kind of unfettered powers that we saw with NARA. Because, Australians have done that is a debt to be borne by us and our children and grandchildren. And we want to make sure that we are doing it right and that we're putting in safeguards that are required.
Dr. Angela Brownberg, Member of Parliament for Southwest St. Andrew.
Meanwhile, Jamaica Labour Party Communication Chairman Senator Abka Fitzhenley says Dr. Brownberg's comments are incomplete without an apology.
Angela Brownberg's acceptance that she blundered is not good enough in the absence of an apology for bringing the Parliament into disrepute and delaying debate on an important bill which is intended to bring assistance quickly to the people of Jamaica who have been badly impacted by Hurricane Melissa. Brownberg should apologize to the Speaker and the Parliament. And I tell you what, members of the PNP, including their leader, who stood when the Marshal was directed to do his duties, they have some accounting to do as well.
He says the PNP should take a more serious approach to dealing with the business of the people.
I suspect that Mrs. Brownberg was compelled into accepting that she was wrong by the continued public backlash that she's facing. But her behavior on Tuesday is indicative of a continuation of misconduct and an unserious approach by the PNP and its members to treating with the business of the people of Jamaica. They really should do better.
Senator Abka Fitzhenley, Jamaica Labour Party Communication Chairman.
In the meantime, Opposition Member of Parliament for Northwest St. Catherine, Damien Crawford, says it is Dr. Brownberg who is deserving of an apology following the mace incident during Tuesday's sitting of Parliament.
I think Dr. Brownberg should be apologized to. I think she was disrespected in the manner for which she was spoken to. I thought that the thing was unnecessary. And I'm satisfied that the PNP was willing to stand for Dr. Brownberg. What invoked was a general disregard for the opposition, which we should be satisfied with in a democratic society.
Crawford is the second opposition MP to defend his colleague. In a short video on Wednesday, MP for South St. James, Nikisha Burchell, says Dr. Brownberg acted after being constantly ignored by the Speaker. Burchell claims that the Speaker's handling of the matter was personal. In doubling down, Crawford argues that Mrs. Holness has been using her position to sideline the opposition benches.
Dr. Brownberg thought to take further action. A speaker that would have been less biased at the time would have simply noted what had happened and asked for an apology. But the speaker, seeking to become the star of the show, decided that she was going to name the member and ask the member to be expelled from the sitting or suspended from the parliament. So what was incredible and surprising to me is the continued use of the speech of the speaker to muzzle the opposition.
Damien Crawford, opposition member of Parliament for North West St. Catherine.
The long-running dispute over proposed mining in the Dry Harbor Mountains came to a decisive head in the Supreme Court on Thursday, with Jamaica's Constitutional Court striking down a controversial environmental permit and halting the project. In a landmark ruling, a 3-judge panel declared the 2020 permit granted to Bengal Development Limited unconstitutional, void, and of no effect, siding with St. Anne residents who argued the approval threatened their constitutional rights. The case was brought by 8 claimants who challenged the decision to allow mining at Rio Bueno in the Dry Harbor Mountains in Discovery Bay. The defendants named in the lawsuit were the Attorney General, Bengal Development Limited, and the Natural Resources Conservation Authority, NRCA. The permit was granted after Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness, acting in his capacity as Environment Minister, reversed a previous decision by the NRCA not to permit mining in sections of the Dry Harbor Mountains. In its orders, the Supreme Court granted judgment in favor of the claimants against all 3 defendants and struck down the environmental permit issued in November 2020 and later amended in December of that year. The judges also issued an injunction barring Bengal Development Limited, its agents or employees from starting or continuing any mining or quarrying activities on the lands in question.
You are listening to Nationwide News at 5. More news after these.
You're listening to Nationwide 90 FM. The time is
5:14. Continuing the news, the Ministry of Education says the 2026 Grade 6 Primary Exit Profile or PEP examinations were successfully administered on Wednesday and Thursday. The ministry says 31,806 students were registered for the exams. Over 27,000 of those students were from public schools, while nearly 4,500 were from private institutions. The ministry says it continued to uphold inclusive practices with 615 students approved for special accommodations. These included extra time, readers and writers, preferential seating, and other assistive formats such as Braille and large print. Additionally, 17 applications were approved for linguistic aids in French, Spanish, and Mandarin. Performance task assessments for the 2026 sitting were cancelled due to the impact of Hurricane Melissa on parishes last October. But the ministry says measures were taken to ensure that all students in the worst affected areas were able to sit this year's exam in safe and supportive environments. These include relocation to alternative examination centers, use of temporary weather-resistant structures where relocation was not feasible, and transportation arrangements to facilitate safe access where required.
Commanding Officer for Kingston Central Police, Superintendent Mishka Forbes, is raising concern about what she says is an increase in interpersonal violence within the division. Her comments follow Wednesday's fatal stabbing of 50-year-old Higgler Catherine Wallace on Love Lane in the division.
This incident marks the 3rd murder recorded in the Kingston Central Division since the start of the year. The 2nd involved the use of a knife. I must say that we are concerned about the shift in violence patterns. What we are seeing is a reduction in gang-related conflict and a rise in domestic and interpersonal disputes since 2025.
Superintendent Mishka Forbes, commanding officer for the Kingston Central Division. Wallace was stabbed by Davar Dakers, otherwise called Davy. The incident, captured on CCTV, occurred at about 5:20 p.m. According to the police, Wallace and Dakers had been drinking all afternoon when an argument developed over a cup of ice. The The dispute escalates, leading to Dacres repeatedly stabbing Wallace in the upper body. She was pronounced dead on arrival at hospital. Dacres was shot dead by the police in an alleged confrontation on Hanover Street in the division later that night. Head of the Area 4 Police, ACP Michael Phipps, says the fatal shooting is being probed by internal and external investigative bodies.
As is protocol in all police fatal shootings, the matter has been reported to Indicom and IPROB for an independent investigation. The JCF remains committed to serving, protecting, and reassuring the citizens of Jamaica. We again appeal to members of the public to resolve conflicts peacefully and to seek help through the police, our churches, our community mediation services before disputes turn tragic.
ACP Michael Phipps, head of the Area 4 Police. A key point of identification came under sustained challenge in the Supreme Court on Wednesday as a police witness insisted she recognized the body of a murder victim. This is despite claims from the defense that her initial observations made it impossible to identify the deceased man. The testimony forms part of the trial into counts 15 and 16 on indictment against the Tesha Miller faction of the Klansman gang. 4 of the 25 defendants are charged in relation to those counts. Robian Williams reports.
The witness, a detective corporal, told the court she was on duty on February 7, 2020, when she received a transmission from police emergency at about 10:40 p.m. She said she and 2 policemen went to a location off Washington Boulevard in St. Andrew, where they were briefed by the first responder and led inside a house. In the kitchen, she observed the body of a man lying face down in a pool of blood, with his hands and feet bound and a wound to the head. She later attended the victim's post-mortem on March 9, 2020, where a relative identified the body as that of Noah Smith. Asked how she was able to say it was the same body she saw at the scene, the witness pointed to similarities in the face and clothing. She told the court the man was wearing a dark blue shirt and blue and white plaid pants, and that his hands and feet were bound in the same manner. She added that his face was covered with dried blood. The defense objected to the line of questioning, arguing it was an attempt to identify the body through the back door, since the witness had earlier indicated the body was face down and her view was limited. Under cross-examination, attorney Paul Gentles pressed the detective on those initial observations. He established that the body was lying face down and that she could only see part of the head, specifically the right side, which she agreed was covered in blood. Gentles suggested that the blood would have obstructed any clear view of the face, but the witness maintained, "I remember exactly what I saw." The defense also highlighted discrepancies between the detective corporal's testimony and her written statements. The witness acknowledged that she gave 2 statements in 2020 and later reproduced another one in 2026 after being contacted. But she admitted that key details, including the clothing of the deceased and any observation of the face, were not recorded in either statement. When shown her statement in court, she agreed that there was no mention of seeing the face of the deceased. Gentles suggested this was because she did not properly see the face at the scene. At one point, the witness appeared to agree with that suggestion, prompting an objection from the prosecution over how the response was framed. The detectives later maintained that she did in fact see the face, insisting she bent down for a closer look. She rejected further suggestions that her account was inaccurate, maintaining that she saw more than just a portion of the head. The trial continues. Robian Williams for Nationwide News.
World in a Minute is brought to you by ABC Electrical Sales. We make things as easy as ABC. Hose assembly and supply, equipping Jamaica for success.
And Charles O'Connor Consulting Network, COCN, driven by international accounting standards, modern technology, and integrity.
The World in a Minute.
The first direct commercial flight between the United States and Venezuela arrived Thursday in the capital, Caracas. The flights mark the resumption of non-stop travel between the U.S. and Venezuela for the first time since diplomatic ties were severed in 2019. Flights were suspended by the U.S. Homeland Security Department, which cited security concerns. For the past 7 years, passengers have relied on international airlines and indirect routes through neighboring Latin American countries.
U.S. lawmakers have voted to fund the Department of Homeland Security, ending a 76-day partial government shutdown over the federal agency's immigration enforcement operations. The department has continued to run without routine funds since February 14. Thursday's vote clears the DHS funding deadlock in Congress that led to chaos at airports in March due to a shortage of security officers at checkpoints.
World in a Minute was brought to you by ABC Electrical Sales. We make things as easy as ABC. Hose assembly and supply, equipping Jamaica for success.
And Charles O'Connor Consulting Network, COCN, driven by international accounting standards, modern technology and integrity.
Recapping the top stories making nationwide news at this hour, Supreme Court strikes down Bengal Development's permit to mine in the Dry Harbor Mountain.
Works Minister Robert Morgan says Spark is delivering and will continue the work.
Dr. Angela Brownburg admits that her conduct in the House on Tuesday was not in keeping with parliamentary standards following May's spectacle.
My actions on Tuesday did not accord with acceptable parliamentary procedure.
But MP Damian Crawford says she is owed an apology.
I'm Robeanne Williams.
And I'm Mahiri Stewart.
Join the Nationwide Family Club at patreon.com/Nationwide News Network. News next, the headlines at 6.
For 25 years, Digicel has been keeping Jamaica better connected. From late-night calls to the texts, clicks, and moments that keep us close. Celebrating 25 years. Digicel, powered by you, connected by us.
Sports at 5 is brought to you by Total Tools. Total Tools, every tool, every trade.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Sports here on Nationwide 90 FM. I'm Wayne Walker. Former president of the J3 is Dr. Warren Blake, who is serving as safeguarding officer for the Jamaica team competing at the World Relays in Botswana, has finally arrived in the capital, Gaborone. Dr. Blake experienced visa issues prior to departure with the team on Monday from Jamaica, and an emergency travel document was arranged for him. Also landing in Botswana late on Thursday night was the current J3's boss, Garth Gale, and Mark Elliott, one of the 3 coaches over there with the team. Now, members of the Jamaica team staged another training session on Thursday as they gear up for the start. The pictures you're looking at, for those who are seeing us on YouTube, there are pictures from training session today. That's on Thursday. And the first event is at 7:05 Saturday morning Jamaica time. And it's the heats of the mixed 4x100 meters where Akeem Blake will run the lead-off leg, and he'll pass to the world 100 meter silver medalist Tina Clayton. Kadrian Golson will be on the third leg, and he'll pass it to Tia Clayton, who will run the anchor leg, and that's the Jamaica 4 for the mixed 4x100 meters. The first event on day number 1 at the World Relays over in Gaborone in Botswana. Minister of State for Industry, Delano Seavright, is urging Jamaica's young and emerging athletes to take a page from the career of sprint legend Usain Bolt by not only excelling on the track but also carefully managing and protecting their intellectual property, IP. Seavright made the call on Wednesday while addressing students and stakeholders during Intellectual Property Week celebrations at the University of Technology. His remarks underscored the growing importance of IP awareness in sports, particularly as athletes increasingly build global brands around their performance and public image.
Usain Bolt, he's not only one of the greatest athletes in the world, but he's a global brand. Whenever we travel to China, Thailand and Malaysia and these places, and you say you're from Jamaica, it's amazing. They look at you and say, oh, Bolt, Usain Bolt. It's the most amazing thing. They don't say Bob Marley comes second or third, but they say Usain Bolt. So really powerful. So his image, his name, his likeness, his endorsements, and even his famous to the world pose represent intellectual property with enormous international value.
And pointing to Bolt as a prime example, Seabright said the multiple Olympic gold medalist has successfully leveraged his name, image, and likeness into a powerful and enduring brand that extends far beyond his achievements on the track.
That value, of course, extends beyond medals. It creates licensing opportunities. It drives our tourism products, as somebody was in tourism just recently. It supports merchandise sales. It opens doors for global partnership. It builds a lasting commercial legacy. And quick story, whenever we go on some of these tourism missions, myself and Minister Bartlett and so on, and the Jamaica Tourist Board, I will carry these big Usain Bolt books because, I mean, when you take that book out, in a meeting with one of the largest travel operators in the world, TUI, in Berlin, Germany. I mean, they're just all in glory. Like, my God, this is so amazing. That's the power of the brand.
That's Delano Seabright, and he is State Minister for Industry. Some football news now. Treasure Beach, they took a massive step in their quest towards staving off relegation. In the Ray and Nephew Jamaica Premier League on Thursday, they completed a 4-2 win over Tivoli Gardens in a rescheduled game played at St. Elizabeth Technical High School in Santa Cruz. Johnny Flemings and Lejean Livingston were on target for Treasure Beach, while Kevin Wilson scored the consolation for Tivoli Gardens, who cannot be relegated but also can't qualify for the playoffs. The teams only played 45 minutes as Treasure Beach held a 2-1 lead when the initial game was aborted by rain at halftime last month. The St. Elizabeth-based unit will now need just a win from their last two games at Treasure Beach. They just need to secure 3 points from their last two games to stay up. And their coach, Kimar Ricketts, spoke with Nationwide Sports after the victory a short while ago, and he explains how they intend to see out the remainder of their campaign.
Every game from this point on is a final, and it's just the same for us. We know that going to Montego Bay won't be easy. We just keep fighting, we keep playing and approaching the game just the same. Every game is a final. Today was 45 minutes, but we still treat it as a final. We're 3 points closer to staying in the league, and that's what we're working towards. The whole team put in a shift. It was a team effort. From the first 45 to this 45, it was a team effort. They went out there and they executed the plan.
That's Kimar Ricketts, the coach of Treasure Beach. They call him the magician. Now, Treasure Beach will go to Montego Bay on Sunday to place the leaders, Mobe United, at Jared Park. And they'll close out their campaign next Wednesday at home at Stets. They'll be up against another team fighting relegation. Would you believe it? Malines United. Finally, in sports at this time, football's world governing body FIFA has again reiterated that Iran will play in the World Cup football finals this summer in Canada, the USA, and Mexico. The president, Gianni Infantino, repeated the call on Thursday at the 76th Annual Congress of FIFA held in Vancouver, Canada, where Iran was the only member federation of the 211 that exists were not represented at the Congress. There's been uncertainty over Iran's participation in the tournament because of the war with the USA and Israel. Iranian Football Federation officials, including its president, Majid Taj, had been due to attend the FIFA Congress. But guess what? They said the nation was not present because they had experienced some immigration issues at the border trying to cross over into Canada. And that will do it for sport. We're going to be back, though, at 6:05. We're going to have our major sportscast. We will have loads more. Alric Swiby will be your presenter.
Sports at 5 was brought to you by Total Tools. Total Tools, every tool, every trade.
For all your custom framing, printing, graphic design, and purchase of art, Make It Frame Art Jamaica Limited, serving you for over 40 years. The time by Frame Art Jamaica is
5:31.
Upgrade your drive with Hyundai and Scotiabank. 4.99% interest, 0 fees, and 1-year insurance free. Choose from the Hyundai Venue, Palisade, Tucson, or Creta. Visit Kingston or Montego Bay showrooms. The temperature by Hyundai is
29 degrees Celsius here in the nation's capital, Kingston. It's 30 in the western city, Montego Bay.
It's the Answers Amazing Sale. Get 50% off everything when you shop at Answers Gifts and Home and Answers for Children. It's the Answers Amazing Sale. Now until Saturday, May 9, 2026.
For 25 years, Digicel has been keeping Jamaica better connected. From late night calls to the texts, clicks, and moments that keep us close. Celebrating 25 years. Digicel, powered by you, connected by us.
This is not just a radio show. This is a lifestyle takeover. Ready to level up your home and your mindset? Tune in to the Design Studio with Karen Booker, your design diva, where bold ideas, refined interiors, and powerful living collide. We're bringing you next level interior design, real decor fixes in What Would Karen Do? Transformation secrets inside Design Lab, and mindset elevation in Thrive 360. Because this is more than design, this is lifestyle. From stunning home tours to confidence building conversations, we're designing rooms and redefining success. Catch the Design Studio Saturdays at 1 p.m. on Nationwide 90 FM and streaming live on YouTube at Nationwide 90 FM Live. Design bold, live elevated, thrive fully.
Every day, Jamaicans have something to say. In the group chats, on social media, in the streets, there's a place where it all comes together. The comment section. This is not a lecture. This is not a call-in show. This is the hottest topics of the day, filtered through real opinions, real WhatsApp messages, real voice notes, real reactions. You agree, disagree, sound off, text it, voice note it, debate it. Comments section, Monday to Friday from 7 to 7:30 p.m. only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media.
Come into the parlor, there's a welcome there for you.
Welcome to the Mayor's Parlor with Desmond McKenzie.
From 1 to 6 p.m. every Sunday, you'll now get more of your favorite vintage music.
Put your head on my shoulder.
Nationwide 90 FM will transform your Sunday into a musical time machine that will take you way back.
Come with me. Let's go back in time.
This magic moment.
Journey into yesteryear with Desmond McKenzie in the Mayor's Parlor.
I've got the music to jog your memory and make you smile.
Put your sweet lips a little closer to the phone.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the best in vintage music.
Come into the Mayor's Parlor every Sunday between 1 and 6 p.m. here on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media.
Cover Story is brought to you by
Multilink. Roll with control. Use Multilink. Safe, fast, and accepted in more locations.
Multilink. Access every time, everywhere I go. Multilink. 24/7 access for me. It's just a win-win when we use Multilink. This card is Jamaican built, yeah. Fast and secure, you can use anywhere. Spend while supporting the economy.
Look for the Multilink logo on your card and benefit from Jamaica's largest debit payment network.
Multilink, 24/7 access for me.
What would I do without my Multilink?
Good afternoon. Thank you so very much for sticking and staying with us right here inside Must Listen Radio. It's Nationwide at 5. I'm Tyrone Reed. Well, listeners, viewers, you are inside the cover story. And today on the cover story, inside the cover story, we want to talk about a very tragic incident on Love Lane in Kingston that led to one person being stabbed to death. And of course, after that, the police being involved in a shooting incident that resulted in the attacker being killed. Now, the commanding officer for Kingston Central, that's Superintendent Mishka Forbes, is raising concern about what she says is an increase in interpersonal violence within the division. Her comments follows Wednesday Wednesday's fatal stabbing of 50-year-old Higgler Catherine Wallace on Love Lane in the division.
This incident marks the third murder recorded in the Kingston Central Division since the start of the year. The second involved the use of a knife. I must say that we are concerned about the shift in violence patterns. What we are seeing is a reduction in gang-related conflict and a rise in domestic and interpersonal disputes since 2025.
The voice there of Superintendent of Police Mishka Forbes. She's the commanding officer for Kingston Central. Wallace was stabbed by Devar Dakers. That's Devar Dakers, otherwise called Davian. If you're over there on our YouTube channel, you can see images leading up to that. Of course, we warn you that it's hard to look at, so we want to give you that trigger warning. But of course, we won't be showing you the actual stabbing portions of this video, the portions of this video where the victim was being stabbed. It's very, very hard to look at. Now, the incident captured on CCTV occurred at about 5:20 p.m. According to the police, Wallace and Dakers had been drinking all afternoon when an argument developed over a cup of ice. The dispute escalated, leading to Dakers repeatedly stabbing Wallace in the upper body. We can't hear anything in the video, but of course we can see the scenes unfolding. She was pronounced dead on arrival at hospital. Dakers was shot dead by the police in an alleged confrontation on Hanover Street in the division later that night. Head of the Area 4 Police, ACP Michael Phipps, says the fatal shooting is being probed by internal and external investigative bodies. During the cover story this afternoon, we'd like to look at conflict resolution and how we can push for better practices. We're being joined by psychiatrist at the Bellevue Hospital, Dr. Brian Kazara, as well as the program manager for WMW Jamaica's We Talk for the Reduction of GBV, that's Gender-Based Violence Project, Ruth Howard. Top of the afternoon to both of you. Welcome to Nationwide at 5.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. Pleasure to be here.
Let me begin with you, Ruth Howard. I'm not certain if you've seen the video. It's absolutely difficult to watch. What unfolded seems almost senseless. Attempts were being made to prevent this from happening, but the attacker would not be stopped. Can we get your take, if you've seen the footage, the images, just your take on this latest incident?
I did see the footage, and it was a very sad, tragic, unfortunate incident that unfolded. The man clearly was very upset, very angry, very offended, and that anger led, unfortunately, to him taking action to take another person's life. What it reminds us is that conflict resolution remains a problem in our country. It is something that we all have to learn, and learn from a very early stage, I believe, how to manage and deal with.
Yeah, and Doc, if you could just help us make sense of this. The argument is over a cup of ice. That is what is being said here. Others are suggesting this is might have been the straw that broke the camel's back. There might have been some pre-existing issues between both the attacker and the victim. Help us to make sense of it. What are we looking at in that video?
Yeah, well, it is hard to make sense of it, because really I think this was an unnecessary death that occurred. But from what we know, and as you rightly said, there are details that may come up, what we can safely say is that what was on display was a lack of emotional regulation, right? So the individuals who were involved in this conflict weren't able to control their emotions at the time. And there are many contributing factors that can influence why people behave like this. And I guess we'll touch on that a little later in the discussion. But I also think it's important to note the context in which this occurred. This occurred outside a bar. So it's very possible that there might have been some substance misuse at play as well. And we know that is a major risk factor for violence.
I hear you agreeing with that one, Ruth Howard.
Yes, I saw that they were outside the bar and read the report as well. That I did think, there may have been, as the doc said, some substance abuse involved.
And of course, we're theorizing here, Doc, but that might explain the rage. Attempts were made by multiple individuals to place themselves in between him and the victim, but he just would not be stopped.
Yes, absolutely. We know that substance misuse increases the risk of violence significantly. And I want to use this opportunity, especially because we have Ms. Howard with us, to emphasize that this applies in situations outside the home, but also applies in situations inside the home and contributes to our very high rates of gender-based violence. Miss
Howard, there are many people looking on and saying another woman falls victim at the hands of another man. Again, just renewing this vicious cycle that we talk about, gender-based violence and the need to stop it, to eradicate it. Where do we go from here is what I'm asking you, Ruth Howard.
So, first of all, I want to say that we don't, as you said, know the nature of the relationship between the people, and there are more things that may unfold over time as, the story spreads and people start to share bits and aspects of it. But yes, gender-based violence definitely is what we call the silent pandemic in Jamaica. It's the thing that has stayed with us, but in a very quiet way in some instances, and just does not go away. So one of the biggest things I see when I looked at that video was somebody who had been offended, and offended in a way that made them feel that they had been belittled and disrespected. And that word respect is a really important word to Jamaican people. We take respect seriously. Respect is part of our identity, and when we believe that somebody has disrespected us, we do things or we act out in ways that sometimes, like as we've seen here, results in the death of another person. And one of the biggest settings where this disrespect or this perceived disrespect is not tolerated is in intimate relationships, intimate partner relationships between people who, romantically or however else are involved with each other, and in domestic settings, in the home, where we're living close to each other and seeing and talking to each other on a daily basis and develop close bonds and relationships. And this is what helps and leads to gender-based violence.
We're up on a break, lady, gentlemen. We're going to have to take the break right here. But when we come back, Doc, I've often said this business of disrespect ought to be studied, particularly among men. It is said that men trade in the currency of respect. But for certain disrespects to end up in people being killed, we see that so very often. We need to talk about that when we come back from this break.
Visit Marshall's Pharmacy, Greater Portmore, for all your prescription needs, gifts, personal care, household, and stationery items. The temperature by Marshall's Pharmacy, Greater Portmore is
29 degrees Celsius in capital city Kingston and 30 out west in the tourism mecca of Montego Bay.
Multi-link, access every time, everywhere I go. Multi-link, 24/7 access for me. It's just a win-win when we use multi-link. This card is Jamaican built, yeah. Fast and secure, you can use anywhere. Spend while supporting the economy.
Look for the multi-link logo on your card and benefit from Jamaica's largest debit payment network.
Multi-link, 24/7 access for me.
What would I do without my multi-link?
For all your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. They stock a wide variety of electrical supplies, including plugs, switches, panel boards, and conduits, plus energy-saving fixtures. ABC Electrical Sales stocks brands like GE, Siemens, Philips, Cutler Hammer, and Allen Bradley. They also offer free island-wide delivery just to suit your needs. Visit them at Shop 8, Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10, or call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales, for a better choice in the electrical business.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you so very much for staying with us right here inside this Thursday edition of Nationwide at 5. We're inside the cover story, and we're bringing to you this latest issue on involving gender-based violence. Yes, a man is seen in a video attacking a woman, stabbing her to death. She succumbs to her injuries, and of course, the man is subsequently killed in a confrontation with the police. We have with us psychiatrist at the Bellevue Hospital, that's Dr. Brian Kazara, as well as the project manager for WMW Jamaica's We Talk for the Reduction of GBV project, Ruth Howard. I said I wanted to come back with you, Dr. Kazara. This whole business of respect, and in particular to men, it seems in my mind something that ought to be studied. I'm not sure if it has, but why do we take disrespect so seriously?
That's a really great question. And the reality is that I think a lot of this is rooted in emotional dysregulation, the inability to be able to control or handle our emotions appropriately. The reality is that, as one goes through their day or their life, there are going to be instances where they might feel, as we like to say, slighted. They may feel as if they're, quote unquote, we have a this culture in Jamaica. But the reality is that most men don't react in such a disproportionate way. Nevertheless, we do have a subset of men in Jamaica, and a significant subset, who do sometimes react in such dramatic ways to situations like this. And a lot of times that might be rooted in mental health issues that aren't entirely either identified or addressed. A lot of men in Jamaica are dealing with issues like depression, anxiety, substance misuse, as we said. And due to stigma and the culture of believing that men shouldn't talk about their feelings or emotions, never really get to address these issues. And so, rather than finding healthy ways of channeling their mental health distress, it ends up coming out in ways like this and can be very problematic and lead to really poor consequences, as we're seeing today.
For this kind of explosion, though, Doc, there might be people who are saying, look, there must have been some kind of identifiable behavioral warning signs that this kind of eruption is imminent. Is that usually the case?
That's a great question. And I think very frequently there might have been. This might have been someone who exhibited a lot of verbal aggression in the past before this happened. I want to emphasize, we talked about substance misuse and mental health issues, but one major thing that I wouldn't want to leave this discussion without mentioning is the role of trauma and adverse childhood experiences. We know that when children are exposed to abuse or violence, that they're at increased risk for not being able to regulate their emotions. And in Jamaica, we have very, very high rates of childhood trauma. There was actually a study that was commissioned by UNICEF some years ago that showed about 8 out of 10 Jamaicans admit to experiencing childhood trauma. So when we have such high rates of childhood trauma, which will contribute to emotional dysregulation, it's not surprising that we have adults, especially adult men, who aren't able to control their emotions. So the point I'm making is that he probably would have exhibited some behavior before, and this is probably rooted somewhere in issues that may have occurred even in his childhood or teenage years.
I guess the follow-up question has to be, Doc, before I bring Ruth Howard back in, if you see people displaying these kinds of warning signs, snapping, the verbal aggression and so on, what do you do as someone who is looking on?
That's a great question. So the first thing to do is for you to ensure that you're safe, right? That if you're an individual and you're around someone exhibiting aggression, ensure your safety and then the safety of those around you first and foremost. Now, if based on your own assessment, you feel as though there's not an imminent risk of danger, then at that point, try and see if you can listen to the individual, because a lot of times when persons are being verbally aggressive, they just want to be heard. So, again, I really want to emphasize the importance of first assessing your own risk, because in a situation like this, unfortunately for the woman who was killed, it would have probably been ideal for there to be some distance made between her and this man. So we always need to first assess safety. But after that, try and provide a listening ear to somebody in a situation like that. And we have to try our best to use what's called non-violent communication. Try our best to avoid using language. Exactly. Thank you very much. We need to try our best to use language and also watch our body language so that we don't escalate a situation. Quite right.
Ruth Howard, as you return to the conversation, what my producer wants me to ask you what bystanders or family members do in the moment when they see a conflict escalating. We've seen the bystanders in this video. They tried, besides probably hitting this man over the head and stopping him from doing something that he would live to regret, which he eventually did. What else can people do?
I mean, those who have some form of influence over the person, it's always a good idea, as Doc said, to try to talk to that individual and just kind of get them to a place where there is a de-escalation of the very intense feelings in the moment. So, and I saw in the video that people were trying to do that. They were talking to him. They were literally trying to use their physical bodies to block him from going after the woman, but none of that worked in this instance. Also, I mean, I think it's just very useful for the individuals themselves now who are experiencing the very intense emotions to remember to breathe. Like, I think we underestimate very much the value of breathing and things like breathing deeply and just allowing yourself to pause before you act, before you do, before you just allow yourself to pause. I think good counsel and good friends are always an excellent thing as well, and that is something we should always strive to be to the people around us so that we can, provide them with a safe space. One of the things that's coming out of this strongly for me also is just how we define masculinity in Jamaica. In Jamaica, we have a very rough, tough, hard, and dominant expectation of masculinity from our men. So we allow them to be angry, but we don't allow them. We allow them to cry, for example, but we don't allow them to cry, but we allow them to curse, right? We allow them to fight. We don't allow them to be soft and caring. And I think that also contributes to moments like this, because anger is one of the emotions that we teach and literally train our men and boys that they are allowed to express, whereas we do not allow them to express pain, to express hurt, to express sadness when that is happening and when they are going through it. So that's another thing I think as a society we can all do to help to change some of our cultural practices. Is allow our men and boys to be full human beings and express and experience the full spectrum of human emotions that they have. So when they're going through a difficult moment, painful moment, allow them to cry. Allow them to be sad. Allow them to be soft. Allow them to be weak if that is what they need. Because if we change this definition of masculinity and allow men to be just humans, then that also helps with the level of violence that we're seeing in our countries and communities.
You touched on a point where I want to bring Doc in. I wanted to get to something specific for the program, but that point about anger, Doc, the cause of it should detain us among the male population, that underlying anger that seems to always be beneath the surface. What are the causes of it, and are we addressing it?
Right. So, some years ago, the late Professor Hickling, he was a psychiatrist, a professor of psychiatry. He did a study, and he found that among the inmate population, so these are persons that are in prison, the men, there were very high rates of personality disorders, right? And personality disorders, just to keep it simple, are a set of conditions that are characterized by endearing traits that are oftentimes very extreme personality traits. So it is believed that a significant proportion of our population, especially the proportion that might be violent, may have personality disorders. And I think this emphasizes the importance of men getting mental health care, because therapy sometimes can assist persons that may have personality disorders. Again, we have to emphasize the very high rate of trauma and abuse that our
childhood trauma. So it's coming from childhood.
Absolutely, because even that's a huge risk factor for personality disorders. So I also want to emphasize that as well.
Ruth, your program focuses on reducing gender-based violence. How does interpersonal conflict like this fit into that broader issue?
So, a lot of the gender-based violence is based on some of the stuff that we've been mentioning here. It is our understanding of how we respond to conflict in an intimate setting or in a domestic setting. How do we respond to conflict when it's coming from someone we love and love dearly? When it's coming from someone in whom we put trust, someone in whom we had confidence, someone with whom we have a romantic relationship. How do we address and deal with that? And in our society, we place certain kinds of expectations on the different parties in these kinds of relationships. So if I am the man, I'm supposed to perform and behave a particular way. If I am the woman, I'm supposed to perform and behave a particular way. And if conflict arises, as people perform these roles, we see violence taking place.
In a practical way, finally, we're almost out of time, Doc. Conflict resolution skills. It always comes up whenever we're having these conversations. In a practical way, how do we get these conflict resolution skills that are necessary to prevent an incident like this? How do we get it to the people? Yes.
No problem. Because we have Ms. Howard here, I'm actually going to focus on prevention. As in medicine, we like to say prevention is better than the cure. And I have to say that we have to look at interventions that target at-risk children in particular. Parenting interventions, because a lot of times when children experience abuse, it might be due to poor parenting. And also looking at youth that are at risk. Oftentimes, even as early as primary school and definitely in high school, we can see persons who will be high risk to eventually become violent adults, or even they might be violent children. We need to set aside these persons and ensure that they get the care and attention they need so that they can learn these skills early and so that they can be better able to handle their emotions and conflict when they become adults.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. But very quickly, Ruth Howard, how do we get these conflict resolution skills over to the people that need it?
We have to, as Doc said, put it in the schools and practice. I think we underestimate the value of practicing, literally running exercises that help people to practice what to say, what to do when conflict arises. Absolutely. Because it's necessary. If you practice, then you have the word, you have the tools, you have the vocabulary to know what to do when the thing happens. Very important.
We definitely need more practice. Ruth Howard, Program Manager at WMW Jamaica's We Talk. Thank you so much. And of course, Dr. Brian Kazara, he's a psychiatrist at the Bellevue Hospital. Appreciate the time and the thoughts.
All right, thank you.
Indeed. An entirely sad episode there, that we witnessed. Entirely sad and avoidable. This has been the cover story. The headlines are next.
We have a special educational broadcast for Read Across Jamaica Day on May 5, 2026. In celebration of Read Across Jamaica Day, Nationwide 90 FM invites you to join us for Students Read on Nationwide 90 FM. From 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., catch Cliff Hughes online live at Dehaney Park Primary School. It's reading with a twist, featuring activities like Reader's Relay, where students race to finish stories, word search challenges to find 10 hidden words, and a Radio Reader, where students shine live on air for the title Read Across Jamaica Radio Star. So don't forget to tune in to our Read Across Jamaica Day initiative. Students read on Nationwide 90 FM on May 5. Catch Cliff Hughes online live from Dehaney Park Primary School, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Celebrate the joy of learning on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. This broadcast is brought to you by LMH Publishing Limited and Lasco Financial Services.
The time brought to you by Guardian Life. Live secure, live easy is...
6:01.
Nationwide headlines at 6.
Good evening with the headlines at 6. I'm Shalois Michael. All 10 roads recommended per constituency under the Spark program will be repaired, so says Works Minister Robert Morgan.
This is a commitment by the Prime Minister. It's a commitment by the Cabinet. It is also a commitment by the government. So I want to assure the public your roads will be repaired. Your 10 roads that you recommended in the consultations will be repaired. And that's a commitment we stand by.
Minister Morgan was responding to comments that hundreds of roads assessed under Spark might not be rehabilitated due to costing and scoping concerns. On Thursday, Minister Morgan sought to explain that the extent of damage to some roads requires supporting infrastructure before repair works can begin. According to him, this is why a Spark 2.0 is already in the pipeline to continue the task ahead.
The Spark program was not meant to fix all the roads that were in the consultation because each constituency would have gotten a specified budget. And we know that as you're building a road, various things may occur. You may have to do retaining walls like we did at Everest Drive in East Kingston and Port Royal. You may have to do more pipelines. So over time, we've realized that some of the roads that were in the 10 will not be done, which is why in the JLP manifesto, we came up with Spark 2 because we made a commitment to communities that we will fix all the 10 roads that they recommended.
Robert Morgan, Works Minister. Member of Parliament for Southwest St. Andrew, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, has admitted that her conduct in the House of Representatives on Tuesday was not in keeping with parliamentary standards. She spoke with a journalist at the University of the West Indies Mona campus on Thursday.
I start by accepting that my actions on Tuesday did not accord with acceptable parliamentary procedure. I also acknowledge under the circumstances that the decision of the House is in keeping with the standing orders. Having said that, however, it arose in the context of a heated discussion that we were having around a critical piece of legislation and our attempts to be heard under the circumstances. And I think context matters while we uphold the rules of the House.
Dr. Brown-Burke says she does not want the incident to distract from what she describes as the lack of transparency in the implementation of NARA.
At the same time, I would not want that to distract unduly from the important points that we were making about the lack of transparency and accountability, the kind of unfettered powers that we saw with NARA. Because, Australians have not talking about. That is a debt to be borne by us and our children and grandchildren. And we want to make sure that we are doing it right and that we're putting in safeguards that are required.
Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, MP for Southwest St. Andrew. Meanwhile, JLP Communication Chairman Senator Abka Fitzhenley says Dr. Brown-Burke's comments are incomplete without an apology.
Angela Brown-Burke's acceptance that she blundered is not good enough in the absence of an apology for bringing the Parliament into disrepute and delaying debate on an important bill which is intended to bring assistance quickly to the people of Jamaica who have been badly impacted by Hurricane Melissa. Brown-Burke should apologize to the Speaker and the Parliament. And I tell you what, members of the PNP, including their leader, who stood when the Marshal was directed to do his duties, they have some accounting to do as well.
He says the PNP should take a more serious approach to dealing with the business of the people.
I suspect that Mrs. Brown-Burke was compelled into accepting that she was wrong by the continued public backlash that she's facing. But her behavior on Tuesday is indicative of a continuation of misconduct and an unserious approach by the PNP and its members to treating with the business of the people of Jamaica. They really should do better.
Senator Abka Fitzhenley, JLP Communication Chairman. In the meantime, opposition member of Parliament for Northwest St. Catherine, Damian Crawford, says it's Dr. Brown-Burke who is deserving of an apology following the mace incident during Tuesday's sitting of Parliament.
I think Dr. Brown-Burke should be apologized too. I think she was disrespected in the manner for which she was spoken to. I thought that the thing was unnecessary. And I'm satisfied that the PNP was willing to stand for Dr. Brown-Burke. What invoked was a general disregard for the opposition, which we should be satisfied with in a democratic society.
Crawford is the second opposition MP to defend his colleague. In a short video on Wednesday, MP for South St. James, Nikisha Burchell, says Dr. Brownberg acted after being constantly ignored by the Speaker. Burchell claims that the Speaker's handling of the matter was personal. In doubling down, Crawford argues that Mrs. Holness has been using her position to sideline the opposition benches.
Dr. Brownberg thought to take further action. A speaker that would have been less biased at the time would have simply noted what had happened and asked for an apology. But the speaker, seeking to become the star of the show, decided that she was going to name the member and ask the member to be expelled from the sitting or suspended from the parliament. So what was incredible and surprising to me is the continued use of the speech of the speaker to muzzle the opposition.
Damian Crawford, opposition MP for Northwest St. Catherine. Those were the headlines at 6. I'm Shalois Michael. Sports is next.
Turn up the heat with Hot Listing, Nationwide 90FM's new on-air and online classifieds feature. If you have a car for sale, room for rent, or yard sale come up. If you look at work or need stuff. If you provide a service, make it a Hot Listing, Nationwide 90FM's new on-air and online classified segment. Your listing plays again and again. From morning till evening. You sing it, we play it. You say it once, Jamaica hears it all day, every hour. Contact our sales team now at 876-630-1210 or sales at nationwidenewsnetwork.com. Hot Listings on Nationwide 90FM, a new revolution in media.
The news cycle doesn't end on Friday. It needs perspective. That's why every Sunday at midday, Nationwide 90FM presents The Week That Was. A clear, informed review of the top stories that shaped the past week, what really mattered and what lies ahead. No noise, no theatrics, just analysis, context, and clarity. The Week That Was. Sundays at 12 p.m. Understand the news before the week begins. Only on Nationwide 90 FM, a new revolution in media.
Good evening with your sports report. I'm Alwix Raby. We start with a track and field as former president of the J3s, Dr. Warren Blake, who is serving as safeguarding officer of the Jamaica team to the World Relays, has finally arrived in Botswana's capital, Gaborone. Dr. Blake experienced visa issues prior to the departure with the team on a Monday, and an emergency travel document was arranged for him. Also landing in Botswana late on Thursday was current J3's boss, Garth Gale, and Marl Elliott, one of 4 coaches with the team. Members of the Jamaica team staged another training session on Thursday as they gear up for the start. The first event is at 7:05 Saturday morning Jamaica time is each of the mixed 4x100 meters, where Akeem Blake will run in the lead off leg to World 100 meters silver medalist Tina Clayton, with Kadrian Golson on the third leg and Tia Clayton to anchor. Now, Minister of State for Industry, Delano Severide, is urging Jamaica's young and emerging athletes to take a page from the career of sprint legend Usain Bolt by not only excelling on the track, but also carefully managing and protecting their intellectual property IP. Severide made the call on Wednesday while addressing students and stakeholders during Intellectual Property Week celebrations at the University of Technology. His remarks underscored the growing importance of IP awareness in sports, particularly as athletes increasingly build global brands around their performance and public image.
Bolt, he's not only one of the greatest athletes in the world, but he's a global brand. Whenever we travel to China, Thailand and Malaysia and these places, and you say you're from Jamaica, it's amazing. They look at you and say, oh, Bolt, you're saying Bolt. It's the most amazing thing. They don't say Bob Marley comes second or third, but they say Usain Bolt. So really powerful. So his image, his name, his likeness, his endorsements, and even his famous to the world pose represent intellectual property with enormous international value.
Pointing to Bolt as a prime example, Severide said the multiple Olympic gold medalist has successfully leveraged his name, image and likeness into a powerful and enduring brand that extends far beyond his achievements on the track.
That value, of course, extends beyond medals. It creates licensing opportunities. It drives our tourism products, as somebody was in tourism just recently. It supports merchandise sales. It opens doors for global partnership. It builds a lasting commercial legacy. And quick story, whenever we go on some of these tourism missions, myself and Minister Bartlett and so on, and the Jamaica Tourist Board, I will carry these big Usain Bolt books because, when you take that book out, in a meeting with one of the largest travel operators in the world, TUI, in Berlin, Germany. They're just all in glory. Like, my God, this is so amazing. That's the power of the brand.
Delano, Severide. Now to some footballers, Treasure Beach took a massive step in their quest to stave off a relegation in the rare and never Jamaica Premier League when they completed a 4-2 win over Tivoli Gardens in their rescheduled game at Stets on Thursday. Johnny Flemings and Lee John Livingston were on target for Treasure Beach, while Kevin Wilson scored Tivoli's consolation. The teams played only 45 minutes of football as Treasure Beach held a 2-1 lead when the initial game was aborted by rain at halftime last month. The St. Elizabeth-based unit now need just a win from their last two games to stay up, and Coach Kamara Ricketts told Nationwide Sports after the victory how they intend to see out the campaign.
Every game from this point on is a final, and it's just the same for us. We know that going to Montego Bay won't be easy. We just keep fighting, we keep playing and approaching the game just the same. Every game is a final. Today was 45 minutes, but we still treat it as a final. We're 3 points closer to staying in the league, and that's what we're working towards. The whole team put in a shift. It was a team effort. From the first 45 to this 45, it was a team effort. They went out there and they executed the plan.
Kamara Ricketts. Treasure Beach will visit leaders Montego Bay United on Sunday before closing out at home to Lamar Lions United next Wednesday. Now, football's governing body FIFA has again reiterated that Iran will participate at this year's World Cup tournament to be hosted by Canada, USA and Mexico. President Gianni Infantino repeated the call on Thursday's 76th Annual Congress in Vancouver, Canada, where Iran was the only member country not represented. There has been uncertainty over Iran's participation in the tournament because of the war with the USA and Israel. Iranian Football Federation officials, including its president Mahdi Taj, had been due to attend the FIFA Congress, but the nation was the only one from 211 not present. The Iranian news agency Tasnim had earlier reported the delegation turned back at border control, citing their treatment by Canadian immigration authorities. Now to cricketers, Wayne Lewis, Honorary Secretary of the West Indies Players Association WIPA, explained that there's no guarantee this year's format for the West Indies 4-day championships will carry over to next season. According to Lewis, a dialogue between governing body Cricket West Indies and WIPA should occur before the start of next season's championships to finalize the format that will be used.
Now, how it works is that because we really don't have an agreement or an MOU in place as to how the tournaments are, we are waiting and we wait on Cricket West Indies to come to us. And we normally try to get from them early. What's the start date? What's the plan? And we basically have to wait on Cricket West Indies. Once they have met with their personnel and they have made their decision as to how they want to do the competition, then they come to us and we start the dialogue. And if they present something to us that we're not comfortable with, we let them know and we start the negotiations. Similarly, for this tournament, it would have looked a lot differently had we agreed with everything that Cricket West Indies was posing. We had our own opinions on a number of aspects of what was happening, and they accepted a lot of what we suggested.
Lewis says the tabletop and Ghana Harpy Eagles will be in action to stay active before the final as they await the winner of the Trinidad and Tobago Red Force and Barbados Pride encounter.
For example, the team that gets the most points now will go directly to the finals, and they're going to play a 4-day game, a first-class game against the Caribbean 11. That wasn't part of our negotiations, but once it was introduced to us, we thought that was a great idea, and we endorsed this. They come to us with their ideas or their position, and they are willing to open it up to a discussion, and usually we negotiate a position. We share our ideas, and if we make an idea, present an idea that they think is worthy, then they'll accept it, and we try and fine-tune it, and we move on.
Wayne Lewis. Now, former West Indies captain Jason Holder produced a man-of-the-match performance in the Indian Premier League on Thursday to steer the Gujarat Titans to an impressive 4-wicket win over Royal Challengers Bangalore. Holder grabbed an impressive 2 for 29 from his 4 overs, including the wicket of fellow West Indian Romaria Shepherd. He also took 3 catches and contributed 12 runs as Gujarat chased down a 156-run victory target. Former West Indies pacer Ian Bishop, who's doing punditry at the tournament, says Holder's versatility makes him an asset.
Worried that he was on the bench all that time and then he was going to come in and they're going to ask as much of him to be that much better than the player that he replaced. I suppose it wasn't hard, but he offers you, as I said, something with, he can bowl in the power play for you. If you want him to bowl in the power play for you, he can bowl over depth, bowl his pace off in the middle. He relishes the opportunity to bat higher for teams in T20 cricket. He doesn't always get it, but he wants to. He thinks he's a batsman, sometimes who bowls rather than a bowler who bats.
In a tournament highlighted by several dropped catches, Bishop hails Holder's exploits in the field.
And with so many catches being dropped, I think there was one day where 16 catches went down in 2 games on that record. 16 catches going down. So when you see him catching like that, you can put him in any position on the field and he'll catch for you. Give him the gloves, he'll do that. So that makes you a real asset to take those catches when so many catches have gone down recently.
Ian Bishop. Noticed some volleyball as Captain Trevian Taylor struggled to put her emotions into words after leading Knox College to an unprecedented 4th consecutive All-Ireland girls volleyball title, insisting that defeat was never on the table for the team. Knox College backed up their captain's determination with a composed and clinical performance on Wednesday at G.C. Foster College, defeating Immaculate Conception High in straight sets. The opening set was tightly contested with both teams trading points, but Knox held their nerve in key moments to edge 25-22. The second set followed a similar pattern as Immaculate pushed hard, but Knox once again found the answer when it mattered most, securing another 25-22 victory to take a commanding 2-0 lead. With momentum firmly on their side, Knox elevated their game in the third set. Their defense tightened and they capitalized on unforced errors from Immaculate to pull away and close out the match 25-18, sealing the championships in convincing fashion. Taylor's leadership proved pivotal throughout the match as she rallied her teammates and kept them focused on the ultimate goal of retaining their title.
We came here with one intention, and that intention was to win. So I just wanted my team to relax and execute what they can do, and that's what they did. Winning the title for 4 consecutive years is truly an amazing feeling. I can't put into words how much this means to me. And it just comes to show that hard work really does pay off. Because when I just started, I couldn't do anything. But look at us now.
Trevian Taylor. Now in the boys' final, Papine High delivered an equally dominant display, sweeping Orakabessa High in straight sets to claim the championships. Papine set the tone earlier, taking the first set 25-20 before turning up the intensity in the second, cruising to a 25-15 win. Orakabessa showed resilience in the third set and kept the contest competitive, but Papine maintained their composure to close it out 25-22 and complete the sweep. I'm Alex Raby, and that's your sports.
If you have financial needs, Chris and Charles will fix them for you. Power in great moments since 1992. Oh, we have it all. Power in great moments. Relax, you got Chris and Charles. Oh, we have it all. When you think loans, think Chris and Charles. Mega Mart, best value by far. You can get it all here at Mega Mart. Mega Mart, best value by far. You can get it all here at Mega Mart. My Mega Mart, the best value by far. My Mega Mart, the best value by far.
For 25 years, Digicel has been keeping Jamaica better connected. From late night calls to the texts, clicks, and moments that keep us close.
Hi, babes.
A network built in Jamaica for Jamaicans. But connection has never been just about the network. It's about the people behind every hello.
Yo, my general.
Celebrating 25 years. Digicel, powered by you, connected by us.
If you've ever called in, shared your story, or got help on this show, then you're already family. Now make it official. Join the nationwide 90 FM Family Club today on Patreon.
Not a mercy. This one is very classic, dedicated to all the schoolers who are taking beats.
If you've ever struggled to pass an exam, then you'll know that students today are under great pressure to get good grades and secure qualification needed to move on to higher education. The problem is that too many students are struggling alone and could really benefit from connecting with hardworking teachers and other bright students in other parts of the country and the region. Join me, Dennis Brooks, this and every Friday evening from 8 to 9, with a repeat on Saturday morning from 8 to 9. For the A-Team, a study group on radio, my team of teachers, students, and experts will break down the syllabus, giving you information, tips, and past paper questions that will help you get top grades in your upcoming exams. Follow us on Facebook Live and on Twitter and be a part of the community. It's the A-Team. Fridays at 8 p.m. with a repeat at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. It's your free extra class on radio and social media. And it's right here on Nationwide 90 FM, the revolution in media.
Every day, Jamaicans have something to say. In the group chats, on social media, in the streets, there's a place where it all comes together. The comment section. This is not a lecture. This is not a call-in show. This is the hottest topics of the day, filtered through real opinions, real WhatsApp messages, real voice notes, real reactions. You agree, disagree, sound off, text it, voice note it, debate it. Comments section, Monday to Friday from 7 to 7:30 p.m. only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media.
Cliff Says is by far the most popular mid-morning radio segment in Jamaica. Cliff Hughes shares his views on the hot-button topics of the day, editorializing on various issues in the news, breaking news stories, and expounding on stories. Cliff Says sets the tone of the show for the rest of the day. Join the award-winning journalist Cliff Hughes weekdays during Cliff Hughes Online at 10 to 10:30 a.m. Join the revolution in media.
What's everyone talking about? It's Front Page in This Morning. Get the issue of the day this and every weekday morning at 7:20 a.m. on Front Page. This Morning. Morning radio the right way. Front Page is brought to you by ABC Electrical for a better choice in the electrical business.
Merle Grove High School on May 15, it's your time. The NNN School Tour 2026 is bringing energy, talent, and excitement straight to your school.
Pull up your pants and put it on your waist and
we're pulling up to highlight student talent and creativity while bringing the fun with games, exciting prizes, and live performances you won't want to miss.
Missing.
It's all going down on May 15 from 1 to 4 p.m. at Merle Grove High School. Don't miss the vibes, the fun, and your chance to shine. See you there. This broadcast is brought to you by the Police Civilian Oversight Authority, Tip Friendly Society, LMH Publishing, Wistinco Group, Digicel, Nutrition Products Limited, and Mystic Mountain, Jamaica.
Good evening. Thank you so very much for sticking and staying with us right here inside Nationwide at 5. And we are inside the nation's business, and we want to turn our attention to the age of consent and the age-old question as to whether or not that age should be raised. Now, the Fewer Children Foundation says raising the age of consent will not solve the growing issue of teenage pregnancy. The organization was reacting to the latest call from opposition spokesman on education, Damon Crawford, for the age of consent to be revised from 16 to 18 years old. Now, the age of consent refers to the point at which a person is old enough in law to agree to sexual intercourse and other sexual activities. During his contribution to the sectoral debates on Tuesday, Mr. Crawford argued that raising the age of consent would help reduce the incidence of teenage pregnancy. He referenced a 2017 World Bank study that showed that teen pregnancies accounted for 49% of female school dropouts before grade 11.
Teen pregnancy, Madam Speaker, has become a problem in this country. Indeed, the average as recorded by the Jamaican institutions is 6,000 per year. Madam Speaker, if one looks at the reality that there is approximately 13 years of education between age 6 to age 17, we will recognize that in school at this time, 78,000 children are children of children, looking at the rate of 6,000 per year. Madam Speaker, we therefore are asking for a reconsideration once again of the age of consent, and I once again believe that this Parliament should consider the movement from 16 to 18 as we move from a 5-year secondary institution to a 7-year secondary experience going forward.
The voice there of Damon Crawford, the opposition spokesman on education. But according to the Fewer Children Foundation, many adolescents, including those younger than 16, are engaged in sexual activity, with some beginning experimentation even before their teenage years. It says this was revealed in its 2024-2025 Youth for Reproductive Justice project. Fewer Children Foundation notes that there are other ways to reduce teenage pregnancy. Their executive founder, Afrika Stevens, says raising the age of consent may risk unnecessarily drawing more young people into the criminal justice system rather than protecting them. It is calling on legislators to listen to youth voices before advancing policy proposals and partner with civil society organizations that work directly with young people. Now, joining us to have another round of this discussion, we have Director of Hear the Children's Cry, Nigel Cooper, as well as the Executive Director for E4Life, that's Joy Crawford, as well as Youth Policy Committee member for Fewer Children Foundation, Sabrina Barnes. Top of the evening to all of you. Welcome to Nationwide at 5.
Good night. Thank you very much. Good evening. Thanks for having us.
Indeed. So I think we've heard from Fewer Children Foundation. Let's hear from Hear the Children's Cry, Nigel Cooper, and then the Executive Director of E4Life, Joy Crawford. Your reaction to that call for the age of consent to be raised from 16 to 18. Beginning with you, Nigel Cooper.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having us. Again, this is a call that we supported. Betty and our Blaine, our founder, many years ago. For more than 10 years, we have been in support of moving the age from 16 to 18, and we continue to be in support that it would be a good thing to move the age of consent from 16 to 18. So we're in support of moving it. We're not saying we solve it is a panacea, but it is a move in the right direction.
Joy Crawford, your immediate reaction to the call from Damon Crawford?
Well, my immediate reaction is that we keep linking the age of consent, or rather the age of permission, as I like to call it, to teenage pregnancy as we experience it here in Jamaica. The real cause of teenage pregnancy in Jamaica is rape, pedophilia, incest. Men who decide to cross the boundaries of vulnerable girls and engage in sexual activity that results in pregnancy. Those are the issues that we need to be considering and discussing as far as it concerns pregnancy and teenage pregnancy in our country. The age of consent, or the age of majority, is another conversation that we need to have. My challenge is that we keep linking it and making it seem as though it will solve the problem. There are many issues about having more than one set of ages around how do we give permission our support to our young people. We need to have one age that covers adulthood and the different issues and privileges or opportunities that come to young people at adulthood. I would like us to stop linking the age of permission specifically to teenage pregnancy. That is not the issue.
All right, we're talking the age of consent and teenage pregnancy, as you heard there from Joy Crawford. But we're up on a break. Let's take the break, and when we come back, we'll hear from the Youth Policy Committee member at Fury Children Foundation, Sabrina Barnes. Soon come.
Drive the most exciting new vehicles in Jamaica. Schedule your 2024 Ford Ranger pickup or Ford Everest 7-seater SUV test drive now. Call or visit KIG today.
The time by KIG is
6:32. All right, welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking and staying with us. Sabrina Barnes, we've heard your organization's position on this. So expound on it a little more for us. You are also saying stop linking the two, that's teenage pregnancy and the age of consent. You're saying the correlation isn't there.
Yes. What we should also understand, I preface the following by saying nothing for us without us is for us. Young people are not calling for stricter laws or punishment. Instead, we're calling for comprehensive sexual education that speak to our real experiences. The age of consent, and as aforementioned, the age of majority doesn't only give consent to sex, it gives access to medical professionals. It gives young people the right to understand their adolescent health rights and not so much just getting pregnant. So I really believe that the stance of just having 18 as the age of majority, the age of consent, is actually opening a can of worms for more problems than rather giving a solution.
All right. So if I can ask you, Sabrina, is your foundation saying we should just allow the children to have sex?
That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that we should not criminalize children who have close relationships in age for having sex who are under 18. We should not allow the age of consent to be 18 and not understand that children and adolescents need access to family planning resources, that the curriculum on education when it comes to comprehensive sexual education should be revamped. You know, it was
so we should be giving children birth control, access to birth control and those things?
Access to resources, not necessarily just...
Well, I'm asking specifically about birth control.
Access to resources should include that. So relationship, consent, contraception, and access to healthcare.
So, and I want to be clear from you, Sabrina Barnes. You're saying we should give children access to birth controls.
I'm saying that we should give children access to family planning resources and education. I'm not saying that we should give them contraception, but we should be giving them education on what contraceptions are.
So educate them, but don't give it to them.
Right.
How do you respond to that, Nigel Cooper?
Hey, well, thanks. I want to just also bring a point. It's not just about raising 18 for raising 18's sake to make it convenient, or it is medical. There are many peer-reviewed journals that emphasize that there is a greater risk of early sexual activity that can actually harm, in particular the females, long-term reproductive health. That engaging early sexual activity, there is greater risk. So we have to protect children from themselves. I don't think anybody thinks that it is good to have children having sex amongst themselves. Right, so raising the age to 18 is also a medical basis for it, rational to do it. Right, I agree with the E4Life Foundation that part of the statistics, and it's a good question, is who are getting, if we talk about pregnancy, who is getting the majority of these underage children pregnant. That is another conversation because we believe those persons need to be charged. We believe that children having sex among themselves should not be decriminalized. They should be go to station bail, have a suspended sentence.
They should go to jail, Mr. Cooper?
They should, hold on, no, listen what I said. They should go to station bail and get a suspended sentence. I'm not saying they're going to sleep a night in the criminal, stay overnight in jail.
No, but let me intervene. No, I have to ask you a question here. So children who are having sex among themselves, even if you don't recommend that or support that, surely it shouldn't be treated like a criminal matter where they have to be going to the police.
It is, but it is a criminal matter. So all I'm saying is that there's a balance. There is a balance that we're not saying they're going to languish in jail or spend one night in jail. They can have a system where they get station bail and they get a suspended sentence. But what is happening now, you only see a few boys being charged. You don't see the females being charged. There's a disparity. And so what is happening is that there is no real consequence. I mean, there's a lifelong consequence of a child, but we're saying that the laws need to be enforced and balanced. Right?
Yeah, but I'm still having a little difficulty with that bit that you are advancing before I bring Joy Crawford back into the conversation. Sex among children, though not recommended, ideally, should it be landing them in police stations? That's the question.
Yes. Yeah,
and you're saying yes to that?
Yes, but we're saying not to stay in lockup. So I want to be clear. I don't want anybody's child to say, hey, we're going to languish in jail. Have a process. Station bail, they don't sleep one night.
Yeah, but you're being euphemistic though. We're still having them interface with the criminal justice system. That's it. That's right. And you're okay with that.
There is a child diversion that again can protect them. But the point is, we don't want to move that stop sign about decriminalizing. Right? There is a stop sign there. Dr. Herbert Gale from UA, his research says that about 44% of persons have early sexual contact, right? Which means that it's a myth to think that the majority of our children are engaged in sex. Based on research, that's not true. So we want, again, the age of 18 will help. It's not the panacea, right? But we also want our laws to be enforced. We have the child diversion, which is now being looked at and modified, right? But we believe we need the stop signs there. We need to charge those persons, the older men who are preying on our children, charge them, right?
But we're not talking about men. We're talking about when both of them are minors.
So hold on. And it also, we need, as we all know, greater sex education. But I am saying that if you tell a baby, don't touch the stove, it's going to burn you. Don't touch the stove, it's going to burn you. And the baby still touches the stove. Right? None of us want the baby to touch the stove.
Let me ask Joy Crawford to respond to that. Joy Crawford, your reaction to
that? There can be many parallel truths. So both of my colleagues have said a number of things that I have agreed with. One of the scenarios that I like to play in this issue about the age of consent being 18, we are currently ineffective in managing 16. Adding 2 more years, I just don't see as a society that we are understanding why we can't manage at 16. If we can't prosecute and lock up all the men who have sex with girls under 16, if we can't get girls to release the names of their knights in shining armor because of all the different social issues for 16, can you imagine us adding 2 more years to that? Including the legal system.
But surely that can't be the reason for us not to do it. What we need is enforcement.
But that's the point I'm making. We have not done a good job with catching the ones up to 16. And we now say that we want to go to 18. It's going to be a pandemonium. We have students on our campuses who are under 18, renting apartments, going to university, turning their own keys. I want to see us go and police these things. I believe that we must take another approach to make sure that if we even go to 18, we are effective We cannot continue to create laws and policies and more restrictions that will not solve the problem.
Let me, Sabrina, let me bring you back into the conversation here, Sabrina Barnes. Clearly, some may argue it makes eminent sense to bring the age of consent to 18. That's when they're adults. If they can go to work legally, they can drive legally, they can vote, they can do anything that they want to do once they attain the age of majority. Why are we giving permission to individuals, minors, who must be under the care of their parents to have sex and possibly becoming pregnant? Because even the people who attempt to be careful get caught with pregnancies. It makes eminent sense, even if you're not linking it to teenage pregnancy, to move the age of consent to 18. How would you respond to that?
I think what we should be understanding what it does actually. The moving doesn't allow, as aforementioned, putting young people in the criminal justice system and just the lack of education thereof. It was alluded to earlier that if a baby, for example, is told not to touch a stove, and if they touch the stove, the truth is education does more for children. And we also have to look at the youth approach. What do young people actually want and what are they calling for? This is a youth policy, and we have to engage in young people to hear what their voices are. The Food Children
Sabrina, hold on there, Sabrina, man. This young people argument, the science says their brains are not fully developed until they hit at 21. Why should people be guided by people who are still being developed like that? Why should we take your view as the final thing when you are not fully developed?
I have to disagree with that proposition actually, because as I aforementioned said, nothing for us without us is for us. It's time that we actually take young people seriously and actually take into consideration how we feel. We're on the ground working with our peers, advocating with our peers, and we understand, especially young people from rural communities, we are more able to relate with the situations that they have going on.
But Sabrina, your slogan sounds good, but you haven't answered my question. I'm saying it is a scientific fact that minors, their brains are not fully developed. It's a scientific fact. It has been established. So why should young people have the final say on this? Isn't that why you have adult societies made up of adults, so they can make rules and regulations that benefit children?
Yes, and we appreciate the guidance from adults that are helping in that regard. However, I'm not saying that we should have the final say. What I'm saying is that we are included in the process.
No, nothing wrong with that.
It's left up to us. However, it is a youth-related issue, and young people need to be actually one of the leading voices when it comes to this.
So if we're not linking, folks on the panel, if we're not linking teenage pregnancy to the age of consent, let's just separate the two issues, because I'm hearing that most of you are saying, if not all of you, the two things are not necessarily correlated in that regard. Just the age of consent by itself, if we move it to 18 with proper enforcement, can that work? Beginning with you, Mr. Cooper, beginning with you.
Right. Well, as I said, from a medical perspective, the age of 18 is a good thing because, as I said, many peer-reviewed journals are there, medical, that early sexual activity is not good. It can actually cause a public health crisis quietly by females having reproductive challenges later in life. So just by 18, it's a good thing medically for children. And again, we have to protect children from themselves, right? So if it's on one argument, one lane at a state is the medical. For medical reasons, it is a good thing to move the age of consent to 18 medically to protect children from themselves.
Joy Crawford, we're almost out of time, but I need to hear all of you on this one. Your reaction to your answer to the question I posed. If we're just on not linking it to teenage pregnancy, just the age of consent to 18, is improve the enforcement, would that be good for society?
I would say yes, simply because under our law, the age of adulthood is 18. Simple, let's keep it at that. All the variations cannot just be linked to sexuality and pregnancy. There are many other things. I know we're running out of time, but just look at this quickly. You have young people who are mothers, right? Young mothers. I work with young mothers. And these young mothers cannot access services for themselves and their children because they're still considered minors. They need adults to be acting on their behalf. There's a dissonance in that. So at one point we said that, they are emancipated, but what does that really mean? I just think we need to have one age, work with the policies, listen to young people, and look at the real root cause of the challenges that they have. Education is the way to start.
Well, all right. And let me hear from you, Sabrina Barnes. And I'd like to add another caveat for your response. Raise the age of 18, the age of consent from 16 to 18, improve enforcement, and also introduce that near in age exemption so that they don't have to be involved or interfacing with the justice system. Of course, help can be offered to the minors who do get involved sexually if they are near in age, and both of them are minors. Would that help the society? Would you agree to increasing the limit to 18 then?
I agree with the special caveat that you would have mentioned, but ultimately raising the age of consent to 18 becoming just a symbolic response than a practical solution. Few Children stands resolute in focusing on the education, the access to services, and a supported environment where young people can actually thrive and make informed decisions.
Few Children Foundation Youth Policy Committee member Sabrina Barnes, Joy Crawford, Executive Director of E for Life, and Nigel Cooper, Director of Hear the Children's Cry. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the time and the thoughts. We appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you very much for having us.
Indeed. Important conversation to have there. This is where we bring the nation's business to a close. We'll take the break. When we come back, I'll take you around the world.
For all your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. They stock a wide variety of electrical supplies including plugs, switches, panel boards and conduits, plus energy-saving fixtures. ABC Electrical Sales stocks brands like GE, Siemens, Philips, Cutler Hammer, and Allen Bradley. They also offer free island-wide delivery just to suit your needs. Visit them at Shop 8, Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10, or call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales, for a better choice in the electrical business.
Multi-link, access every time, everywhere I go. Multi-link, 24/7 access for me. It's just a win-win when we use multi-link. This card is Jamaican built, yeah. Fast and secure, you can use anywhere. Spend while supporting the economy.
Look for the Multilink logo on your card and benefit from Jamaica's largest debit payment network.
Multi-link, 24/7 access for me.
What would I do without my Multilink? Ready to upgrade your drive? Hyundai and Scotiabank are making it easier for you. Right now, you can drive away in a brand new Hyundai with an interest rate as low as 4.99%. Low interest rate, zero processing fees, and 1 year free insurance with Scotia Protect. Whether it's the compact Hyundai Venue, the bold Palisade, the stylish Tucson, or the dynamic Creta, Hyundai has the perfect vehicle waiting for you. So visit our showrooms at 7 Oxford Road, Kingston, or Providence Drive, Montego Bay, and get behind the wheel of a brand new Hyundai. Hyundai Jamaica. Because of you, conditions apply.
For all your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. They stock a wide variety of electrical supplies including plugs, switches, panel boards and conduits, plus energy-saving fixtures. ABC Electrical Sales stocks brands like GE, Siemens, Philips, Cutler Hammer, and Allen Bradley. They also offer free island-wide delivery just to suit your needs. Visit them at Shop 8, Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10, or call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales, for a better choice in the electrical business.
Every professional reaches a moment when growth calls, a promotion, a new opportunity, a bigger vision. At Mona School of Business and Management, our globally competitive graduate programs, including the internationally accredited MBA, are designed for ambitious professionals who are ready to lead. With flexible delivery options that fit your lifestyle, advancing your career is within reach. Learn from world-class faculty, connect with influential leaders, transform your future. Visit discover.msbm-uwi.org and apply online for a graduate degree. MSBM, Global Knowledge, Regional Solutions.
Come to Stewart's Hardware 2-day spring super sale. Friday, May 1st and Saturday, May 2nd. 2 days filled with super discounts. Get cement, steel, tiles, blocks, paints, plumbing, power tools, and lots more at super sweet prices. You simply can't afford to miss Stewart's Hardware spring sale. That's May 1st and 2nd. There'll be fantastic savings just for you. Stewart's Hardware and Home Center. Building value. Visit our website at stewartshardware.com and request a quote.
Welcome back. Thank you so very much for staying with us. And in today's edition of Around the World, just over 60,000 voters across Antigua and Barbuda, right here in the Caribbean region, cast ballots today to elect 17 members of the House of Representatives. This in a snap election called nearly 2 years ahead of schedule by Prime Minister Gaston Brown. Now, in the 2023 elections, the ruling Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party, ABLP, narrowly secured 9 of 17 seats with 47% of the vote. Since then, it has expanded its parliamentary presence through by-elections and defections. The opposition United Progressive Party, UPP, led by Jamal Pringle, has faced internal challenges since former leader Harold Lovell stepped down in 2023. Prime Minister Brown has cited polling that places the ABLP well ahead of the UPP. However, no independent surveys have been published. We'll now join ABS TV's live election coverage with Garfield Burford.
Watching closely. Yes, Professor Robinson, your take on the initial numbers so far.
Okay, thanks. Good evening. My first general elections in Antigua. So if you look back at 2023, where the ABLP really eked out a very narrow victory in terms of the overall number of seats, gaining the 9, the minimum, and winning by small margins. So that would have represented, compared to the previous election, a swing towards the UPP. So one of the things I'm looking at for tonight is there a continued swing to the UPP? Because the UPP doesn't need a large swing compared to 2023 to actually see them home. Or does the ABLP begin to reverse that swing? I guess for me, I'm sort of looking at what I think of maybe 2 theories of general elections. The ABLP seem to have mounted a very strong national campaign, presenting themselves as a unified government.
Hold please, Prof. We're going to go back to Election Central. Ursula has more numbers coming in, Ursula?
Indeed, the first of 12 boxes having been completed in St. John's Rural North. So the first of 12, and that in that first box, 157 for the incumbent Charles Fernandez of the Antigua Barbuda Labour Party, 157 and 94 for the United Progressive Party's Malika Parker. So in St. John's Rural North, 157 for Charles Max Fernandez, 94 for Malika Parker. Just getting started there in Rural North.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ursula. And of course, those numbers will be coming in, of course, on your screen, and they will be, of course, we'll make sure that you can follow that, because I'm pretty sure that some individuals are watching with their, just as our panelists here, they're watching with their pens and their papers and their notebooks, and they're tracking all of this, so we'll follow that very closely. Back to you, Prof.
Yes, I was saying, in terms of this swing, I think that seat with Melford Nichols is an interesting one, because that was just 6 votes separating. So those early results do suggest some sort of swing, at least in that constituency, towards the ABLP. And I was saying, I sort of think maybe we might test 2 theories of elections. The ABLP seems to have mounted a very strong national campaign, presenting themselves as a unified government, vote for continuity. And my own sense of the campaign, which is to hear some of the views from the locals, is that UPP has sought to run almost, try to win it constituency by constituency, and it'll be interesting to see how those two strategies play out.
Absolutely. Let's go back to Ursula for Election Central. Thanks so much, Prof.
Thank you so much, Garfield. So we're now in St. John's Rural East, the first of 15 boxes coming in St. John's Rural East. In the first box, 172 for the incumbent Maria Bird Brown, 172 for Maria Brown, and 76 for Ashworth Azil of the United Progressive Party. So 172 to Maria Brown of the ABLP, 76 for Ashworth Azil of the UPP.
What is that division?
Bertrand is asking which box is that one and which polling district?
No indication just yet. They just said the first box. Well, I can find out though.
No problem. We'll get those numbers as well. Ursula, you also have an interesting number in St. Mary's South.
That's correct, Garfield. So polling district A, the surnames A to C. The incumbent Kelvin Simon of the UPP, 99 votes. And the challenger Dwayne George of the Antigua Barbuda Labour Party, 157. So Kelvin Simon of the UPP, 99.
What division?
Dwayne George, 157. Polling district A to C. There are 3 rejected ballots in that box.
That's interesting.
All right, Ursula, thank you so much. A lot to chew on from those numbers very quickly. Bertrand, back over to you.
That report there, live scenes you're getting there from ABS TV's live election coverage, of course, being anchored by Jamaica's own Garfield Burford. We continue to watch the elections for you in Antigua and Barbuda, and of course in subsequent newscasts we'll try to give you the details. All right, that's where we have to leave it for today's edition of Nationwide at 5. I want to thank our super producer Dana Davey. Thanks to our technical operator Andrew Glenn Anderson. Don't just a set, folks. Andrew and Glenn together, that's his name. Thanks to all the hardworking members of the news and production team led by our editor Cara Powell. This has been Nationwide at 5. I'm Tyrone Reed.
Morning